A man who has turned 88 still toils away in a secluded studio in Malibu, day after day, holding a brush to paint distorted faces, sometimes sitting at the piano to play a piece of music hidden away for half a century, and occasionally turning on the screen to binge-watch a TV series through sleepless nights before writing a letter praising a young actor. It sounds like a fictional tale from a surreal film, but it is Anthony Hopkins, the Welsh legend who turned Hannibal Lecter in The Silence of the Lambs, 1991, into an immortal figure of terror. With a performance lasting barely 16 minutes, yet enough to win him the Academy Award for Best Actor, Hopkins entered history as proof that cinema does not need much screen time to create lasting nightmares. But to look only at Lecter is to overlook a larger world, the world of an eccentric genius, forever contrary, forever surprising. Born in 1937 in the town of Port Talbot, where factory smoke and industrial noise clouded the skies, Hopkins's childhood was far from bright. Dyslexia left the boy struggling with words. Teachers branded him slow. Classmates mocked him. In those years, Hopkins found refuge in music and images. He learned piano as a child, wandered through the town library borrowing books on painting and classical artists. He often recalled that Richard Burton, the most famous son of Port Talbot, became his inspiration. Meeting Burton at 15, Hopkins decided he, too, would become an actor. Yet few knew that even before stepping onto the stage, Hopkins had been nurturing another creative world within himself, one with little spotlight, much shadow, and a deeply personal imprint. At times, the press even speculated that his isolation was a sign of Asperger's syndrome, as he often avoided socializing and immersed himself in private obsessions. Hopkins never confirmed this, only remarking briefly, "I've always felt like an outsider." The rumor, however, only deepened the fascinating contradictions housed within a single man. One of the rarest and strangest documents about Hopkins is a waltz he composed at 19, and the waltz goes on. Without formal training, he sat at an old piano in a small room, piecing melodies overheard from a neighbor's radio. The handwritten draft, messy yet full of feeling, became a relic of youth. Relatives said Hopkins would sometimes tap out fragments, then put them away again. He never let anyone hear it, never published it, as if he wanted to conceal a fragment of memory. Rarely does a composition written in 1956 only surface in 2011. Half a century asleep in a drawer, it was like a seed in hibernation, awaiting its spring. In 2011, Stella Aroyav, Hopkins' second wife, discovered the manuscript and sent it to André Rieu, the renowned violinist famous for grand European concerts. Rieu was instantly captivated. A simple, yet soulful melody, as if echoing from memory. That July in Vienna, the capital of the waltz, the piece was performed for the first time. Hopkins sat in the audience, transfixed, as the music of his 19-year-old self was reborn. The performance video, posted on YouTube, quickly attracted millions of views. Yet the original manuscript remained in his possession, a private treasure. European newspapers dubbed it a late-blooming musical fairy tale, while fans buzzed with the rumor that Hopkins left the hall with tearful eyes. Some journalists claimed he sank into brief depression because the music dredged up youthful days of heavy drinking and a near-fatal car crash. Hopkins did not confirm, only admitting that alcohol once brought him to death's door in 1975 and that music was his salvation. If his role in The Father, 2020, portrayed broken memories, then this waltz was memory reassembled into order. From a boy dismissed as without a future, he wrote a melody strong enough to echo across Vienna. That is not just talent, but proof of a singular mind, creating at the border between sorrow and resilience. Music was one escape. Painting became another doorway. After portraying Picasso in Surviving Picasso, 1996, Hopkins began painting more often. At first a pastime, then a habit. Since the early 2000s, he has painted daily in his Malibu studio. He did not paint landscapes nor traditional portraits. His canvases teem with distorted faces, overlapping reds and blacks, warped eyes staring back. Some visitors recalled seeing a painting of Lecter as a monster. Hollow eyes, a ghastly smile. Hopkins neither confirmed nor denied it, only smiling. "I paint to get away from myself." His work recalls Picasso, Francis Bacon, and the darkness of an inner world he rarely showed in public. He has exhibited in Texas, London, Los Angeles. Some pieces sold for $25,000, many were donated to charity. Yet most remain piled in his studio, a secret archive. Hopkins calls it his sanctuary, where he can scrawl freely and watch images emerge from chaos. For him, painting is like rehearsing lines, starting with fragments, layering until depth takes shape. A 2020 Facebook video of him painting went viral. Hopkins smiling as he poured red paint over black canvas, chilling viewers who thought of Lecter. An old friend half joked, "Sometimes I think he paints to exorcise demons." Rumors spread that Hopkins kept a secret painting of Lecter as a devil, locked away in a private room. Hopkins just chuckled when asked, which only made people believe it more. If music and painting opened his inner world, the 1980s marked another turn. Hopkins tried being a singer. In 1986, after The Bounty and several Shakespeare roles, he stepped into a studio and recorded the single Distant Star. A pop ballad with his deep voice, its lyrics spoke of a faraway star and loneliness. The vinyl, released in limited copies, reportedly made the UK singles chart, then vanished. Today, only a few copies surface on eBay, fetching high prices for rarity. Listening now, his voice sounds like narration, slow, haunting, like a monologue. Rumor has it, he once considered recording a full album but abandoned it, feeling the songs were too personal, like an audio diary. Some fans believe unreleased demos lie hidden in his private archives. Others whisper that Hopkins even tried jazz, but destroyed the tapes himself because they sounded too much like his mind's journal. For a Shakespearean actor, singing pop ballads was eccentric. Quitting and erasing them only deepened the impression of unpredictability. The lyrics about a distant star felt as though he sang about himself. A star far away, brilliant, but lonely. In the studio, eyes closed, his baritone resonating like a whisper. That moment captured another Hopkins, the singer the world never knew. From the forgotten voice of Distant Star, Hopkins's story veered like the script of his life. An uncanny coincidence he called the magic of life. London, early 1970s. Hopkins was preparing for The Girl from Petrovka, a project with Goldie Hawn based on George Pfeiffer's novel. To research the role, he scoured London bookshops, but could not find a copy. One cold afternoon, he sat on a park bench near the West End. There, as if by unseen hand, lay an old book. Opening it, Hopkins froze. It was The Girl from Petrovka. Not just any copy, but annotated in blue ink. Months later in Vienna, he met Pfeiffer. During their conversation, Pfeiffer mentioned he had once lost his annotated copy after lending it to a friend in Paris. Hopkins showed him the one he had found. Both men were stunned. It was the same book. Hopkins took it as destiny's sign. To others, coincidence. To him, proof of the universe's workings. He called it the whisper of the universe. Rumors clung to him ever after. That he believed so strongly in omens, some colleagues thought him telepathic. On set, he was known to stare unblinking into a co-star's eyes for long minutes. Fellow actors admitted chills. Audiences called his gaze hypnotic. From Petrovka, Hopkins became forever linked with mystical coincidences, making him seem even more like Odin in real life, a god who sees fate. If Petrovka was a legend of the past, in 2013, Hopkins left another rare artifact for the internet age. When Breaking Bad ended, Hopkins, then 75, decided to give it a try. Instead of spacing it out, he binge-watched all 62 episodes in 14 days. At 75, that was unusual. But more surprising, he wrote a letter to Bryan Cranston. In a long email, Hopkins called Cranston's performance the greatest acting I have ever seen, comparing Walter White to Hannibal Lecter, both terrifying transformations of ordinary men. He detailed his analysis: the eyes, the rhythm of speech, the shift from frailty to ruthlessness. Cranston shared the letter publicly, and it spread like wildfire. Fans dubbed it the ultimate seal of approval from a master. Rumor had it Hopkins wept during the finale. Unverified, but his solemn, moving prose made people believe it. In an era when Hollywood praise is often reduced to a tweet, Hopkins chose the old-fashioned way. A long letter, written like a speech. A reclusive star in Malibu writing a fanboy email like a young admirer. That contradiction made the letter unique. And, on closer look, it was proof of humility. At 75, already a monument, Hopkins could still call another man great. The internet erupted, comparing Walter White and Lecter as two poles of darkness authenticated by Hopkins himself, turning the letter into a Reddit meme. Meanwhile, Hopkins kept a curious habit, memorizing one poem each week. Beginning in the 1970s when he battled dyslexia, this became ritual. He read Shakespeare, Dylan Thomas, Yeats, turning words into music. On Instagram recently, he still posted videos reciting poetry, eyes shining, voice resonant. Psychologists call it memory therapy. Fans call him the steel brain. At nearly 90, he still remembers every line, something many younger people cannot do. Never boastful, only creative discipline. This helped him inhabit roles quickly, learn scripts with precision. One director recalled, Hopkins read scripts hundreds of times, then walked on set as if the character were flesh and blood. In the industry, rumors spread that he once memorized the entire Hamlet in a single week. Hopkins denied it, but the myth only made him more mysterious. Looking back at it all, the waltz that slept for half a century, the haunting Malibu paintings, the erratic pop single, the fateful Petrovka book, the Cranston letter, and the poetry memorizing habit, we see a multi-layered portrait of Hopkins, a man who is not only Lecter with the unblinking gaze, but an artist beyond categories, always seeking an escape through art. He demonstrates mastery of many creative languages, sometimes by rules, sometimes by breaking them, at times concealed with solemnity, at times revealed in surprise. Together they form a complex portrait, one that inspires reverence yet remains elusive. If Hopkins were only an actor, he might have stopped at his first golden statue. But it is precisely his differences that kept the fire alive, so that at 83 he still won a second Oscar. There was even a period in the 1990s when tabloids claimed Hopkins would abandon Hollywood to return to Wales and raise sheep. In truth, he did buy a farm, but he never left the stage. Yet, the story kept resurfacing, as if to embellish the image of a genius who might vanish at any moment when tired of the world. While many aging stars retire, he continues to write music, paint, and recite poetry. He still sits by the piano in Malibu, fingers gliding gently, sometimes laughing to himself. Perhaps that is the most beautiful closing image. Anthony Hopkins, at 88, living in his own world, both distant and magnetic. If anyone asks the secret of genius, the answer lies in eccentricity. Clearly it is not a flaw, but an unrepeatable identity. From a dyslexic boy in Port Talbot to a Hollywood monument, Hopkins proves a simple truth. To be immortal, sometimes you must dare to be utterly different. Anthony Hopkins leaves us not only with immortal performances, but with a hidden trove of music, paintings, fateful anecdotes, and peculiar habits. Together they form a unique portrait, a genius beyond convention. If you feel this story has revealed an entirely different Hopkins, help spread it. Share your thoughts. What surprised you most? The forgotten waltz? The distorted paintings? The pop single? The fateful book? Or the letter to Cranston? Don't keep it to yourself. Share it so others can also discover the truth behind a symbol we thought we knew. Hit like if you value an artist who dares to be different. Subscribe so you won't miss cinematic stories about legends, and share to inspire others. That sometimes simply daring to live and act is the key to unlocking the fascinating possibilities within ourselves that so few ever reach.